Mr. Cletus Obon is a former lawmaker and chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, APC. He's live with us here in Abuja. Thanks so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me once again after a protracted absence from channels.
You being on vacation, yes. Election and all, what have you?
Everything.
Let's look at what has happened over the last few months of President Bola Tinubu. It's been some very rough road. And tonight we're looking at how he can navigate those rough patches, relationships with the National Assembly, relationship with Nigeria. In another month or so, the president will be 1 year in office. He spent about 11 months already. What would you, one of the areas that a lot of people had debated or raised a question mark is perhaps the role of the National Assembly in helping or working or being doing their duties as prescribed by the Constitution to the Nigerian people. But in your own assessment, how has that been?
Well, let me say that the Tinubu presidency came in at the most turbulent time of our political history. In any case, we've never had a smooth history in the last 64 years, or nearly 64 years. But by October, will be about 64 years as a nation, as a country, as an independent country. Each successive government have always been touted to be the worst compared to its predecessor. No government has come into office and Nigerians will tell you that this is the best government. It is always, in comparison, the worst compared to the last one. Buhari was the worst because of Jonathan. Today, President Tinubu is worse than Buhari. When Tinubu leaves office, he will be better than the next person because the expectations are high. As a nation in growth, in motion, a nation in motion, what the expectations are constantly undermined by factors that Nigerians have not gone through. And each time Nigerians talk, especially those abroad, in the UK, in America, they keep telling you we copied from America, we're not doing what America. But you forget that America, after nearly 250 years of practicing democracy, still had to deal with the issues of Trump in Capitol. They have to deal with the electoral issues of Florida and all that. What that means is that we should be learning. But under a Tinubu presidency, I can tell you, working with the National Assembly, I have made this point over and over, that it's the first time in our history that we are having the president as a former parliamentarian senator, the vice president, former senator, and the Senate president, a former governor and minister, and all of them former governors. The first three citizens of Nigeria today have held both executive and parliamentary positions.
Should that be an advantage or a disadvantage?
A great advantage, to which you are seeing the less rumpus that you had under the last administration. If you remember, the last two Senate presidents were a problem to this country. The Saraki Senate presidency, if you remember, it was a clear Palestinian versus Israel war in Nigeria.
That those who would disagree with you that, in fact, we had healthy competition between the executive and the parliament. And in fact, there are those who have opined that in the 4 years of the National Assembly, in the last 4 years of Buhari, that was a parliament that gave an approval, just a straightjacket approval to everything the executive had. Unlike the Saraki and the Dogara administration, which did a lot of check and balances. And in the last 4 years of Buhari, we saw a lot of anomalies, especially with the CBN. And these were the issues that are raised about the approvals the National Assembly made, which is now coming to light as a misnomer.
Let me now make this point to Nigerians this night. And I have always maintained that there are distinguishing factors between partisan politics and nation building. The parliament is not an alternative or an opponent of the executive. That is not the intentment of a parliament. Now, when you talk about the last 4 years, that is the Lawan Senate presidency and that of Saraki, and you are talking about a robust engagement. They are two different things. You will agree with me that each time you undermine the parliament, the fulcrum and pivot upon which democracy depends. In 1983, we tried it, and it was Nigerians calling in the media for a change of government. When it did come, nobody was spared because it is what you will call a zero-sum game where everybody will lose. Now, under this present administration, what you are calling, Nigerians call it a rubber stamp parliament, in which everything is just passed. Look at Buhari's requirement for the Tucano. The Tucano will take you 4 years, and they insist that you must pay now, otherwise you won't get them at a particular time. And he went ahead to do it and explained to Parliament. Parliament under this agreed. Under another regime, under another circumstance, the Parliament will oppose it and Nigerians will be paying the price for it. You can see clearly that he subdued to a very large extent what you knew today as, what you knew then as Boko Haram. Today we are dealing with bandits and kidnappers. Unlike the Boko Haram that was constantly taking our ungoverned spaces and putting flags there. Today you can't say that in Nigeria because those actions were taken.
Are you able to justify how the parliament in the last 4 years of President Buhari approved ways and means, which is even some of the lawmakers who were there at the time are regretting their actions?
Now, I tell you this, when you take one isolated incident and position it as if it is the universal norm, you will be unfair to government.
The ways and means that almost crippled this country.
I'm telling you that the ways and means is one isolated case.
But it almost crippled this country.
Yes, agreed. One action can cripple a country, can throw a country into war. One action of one man, one act of indiscretion.
Is it justifiable under such a parliament?
Ways and means, I insist, was one of the errors of that period. It's one of the errors. We cannot use it and judge the entire era of.
So, do you blame those who liken the Akpabio and Abbas leadership in the National Assembly, who likened it to a rubber stamp that they experienced in the Lawan Gbajabiamila era?
Now, this is the error of the moment. The Akpabio you are talking about has been governor and minister and now Senate president. There is nothing you are going to ask him to do which he knows will not stand. Remember, over 2 or 3 times, there were reversals in decisions within the first 6 months. We are just running 11 months, you are counting. You are counting 11 months out of 4 years. Out of 4 years. And those 11 months, you have seen a lot of reversals. NDDC was reversed. Appointments in NDDC that were approved by the National Assembly were reversed. The National Assembly didn't just accept it. They were ministerial nominees. They were rejected under an Akpabio Senate presidency. Remember also that under this Akpabio Senate presidency, this president has had to withdraw even budgets and ask for supplementary budget and some additions and some other things which today you are calling padding, which is something that is laughable for anybody who understands how a parliament operates when we talk about budget padding. It's like saying that a medical doctor whose duty it is, especially a gynecologist, to treat a woman. A husband brings her, and then the woman finishes treating, and the husband now takes the doctor to court for unlawful knowledge of his wife when he took him there for doing his job. Or a hanged man who goes to perform a duty that the judge approves and will now say this. It is the duty of the National Assembly to add, subtract, modify every budget, and you call that padding. And then when that happens, you are, like I said, you are saying that the hanged man who goes to perform his duty has already committed murder, and you take him to court or start castigating him. This is what you are doing to the National Assembly when you say that they padded the budget.
And you don't want to, you are ignoring the fact that there is on the current of those who are asking for the removal of Akpabio within the Senate.
It is the tragedy of our democracy that ignorance and ignorant people have constantly made this country a laughingstock about how democracy operates. To ask for Akpabio's removal is to deal with the symptoms of a crisis than to deal with the causative agencies. For instance, you are dealing with a parasite. You get into the cold, you have parasites of that mosquito implanted in you, and you say it's because of the rain that beat you. That's why you have malaria. Rain does not cause malaria. It's the plasmodium of the mosquito that causes malaria. It is never rain. So when you talk about Akpabio, you are just dealing with symptoms of what has happened because Akpabio does not in any way prepare a budget. He and his colleagues cannot, even as senior president, approving the budget of his own constituency.
You saw some of the alleged infractions, how they amass different kind of things in the budget to themselves. You've seen those allegations here and there, haven't you?
They remain allegations born out of sheer ignorance. That is crass ignorance, proudly and arrogantly displayed in the public domain. Let me ask you, for instance, does any senator have a right to even propose a budget? He cannot. All he does is the ministry brings a budget and say, I am from Ikorepene, you now bring, I'm a Bokiman, for instance, and the Minister of Lands or Minister for Works says the road to my village should be constructed and puts 10 million as at May last year or as at June last year. By this year, we discovered that bitumen and other things will go. The price of cement has gone from 3,500 to 11,000 to 7,000. And you bring it to the National Assembly, and we are now considering in January 2024 what you proposed in June 2023. And by this year, cement has gone to 7,000 from 3,500. Will you allow, as a senator, as a House of Reps member, as a House of Assembly member, will you allow the price of that road, that 1 kilometer should still remain 15,000, for example, when the price of cement has now gone and you know that drainages will take over 100 bags of cement, that whose price has doubled? And you now say that if you now say, increase this budget to 15,000, you say it is padding it. That is a sheer...
No, we're talking about, I mean, how did we even get here? That's not the...
No, we are talking about the Akpabio. I'm talking about
I mean, I'm wondering, Akpabio was never going to be the subject of conversation, but...
No.
Yeah, but let me take you to a more serious, conversation that we're supposed to have. There seems to be a litany of, and I'm happy with some of the successes that our military and our security agencies have seen. For example, those who killed some police officers, and our heart goes out to their families. The IG has said that they will go after them. We understand that some of them have been arrested. You saw what happened in Okwama, for example. Those military officers were killed. And what is surrounding all of this is the issue of illegal oil bunkering. Those who are living in those communities have said, you are from that region. How can the president navigate this kind of rough patch?
First, it requires a lot of firm but fair treatment of those, our military men who have sworn on oath to sacrifice their lives for us. What happened in Okwama and to those policemen should never be tolerated. When people talk about human rights, you forget that the soldiers and the policemen also are first Nigerians before they became policemen or army or soldiers. And when you take their life and then go on national television and go on internet and spread the videos of them being gruesomely murdered and decapitated, and then you turn around and talk about human rights for the communities, the president has a duty, and which he rightly took off, and which is why this president must be commended, when he insisted that any harm done to a soldier is a declaration of war, because they are to defend the national territory. And if national assets of the country and the life wire of this country, which is oil, is being tampered with, soldiers go there even for peace. If they went for war, nobody would have been there. They wouldn't have gone to that town hall. The soldiers in Okwama, they would have gone there to take on a knot and come out without arms. But for that community to do, and we all come from communities, the president has to insist on the community leaders, the Niger Delta leaders, and I've made this point since the era of Yaradua, that we in the Niger Delta owe ourselves a duty. They gave us our 13% derivation, gave us NDDC from Ompadek, and we turn around and become the chief culprit in undermining and compromising whatever was going to be our comfort. Today, they have given us yet another chance, and people are pilfering oil, and when you're about to be stopped, they go into gangsterism, and then some people come out and say they are lawyers, they are community leaders. We are also from Niger Delta. The boy who was killed, that Daniel Obi, is from my village. I paid for his farm to go to NDA. He's the only member of his family still existing. His father died, a farmer. The other brother died in an accident last year. And you gruesomely murder him. They are lucky they are not our neighbors. We'll just send 2 people to sit in that community and see whether it will exist. The army is just joking. I'm telling you this, that nobody will come to our community. Last year, between Agbo and Asaba, policemen were on guard doing the normal routine check. Robbers just came there and gunned them down. One of them is my nephew. Was my nephew. Just last year. And this year again, Daniel Obi has been gone down. And then you now talk about that, and we are all from Niger Delta. They're not supposed to know this, because anybody in uniform anywhere in the world is protected by citizens. In fact, in places like America, if you go there even as a Nigerian soldier and show you your ID card, you buy less. Why should we Nigerians, even our media, even our social media bandits, as Shoinka will call them, will come back and start displaying pictures of dead Nigerian soldiers in the war front? Why do you do that to us? Do you have more satellites than CNN? Have you seen the dead body of an American soldier? You don't ever see it. You only see him on a casket with an American flag. But in Nigeria, we display how we murder a female soldier and a husband going for a traditional wedding and display it on social media. Are we fair to our country? Are we fair to our military men? Are we human? Have we lost our humanity? Is it in our place to do that? And Daniel called me a week before that day that he was murdered to tell me that he's coming to see me to thank me for what we are doing for the community. Because I had to construct a road to my place with personal funds, and he came to me. And then you turn around and tell me that that's human rights. And people like Femi Falana, a senior lawyer, talks as if he's not a Nigerian, as if he's not an African. Our basic humanity that has been sold to the world. You come back and tell us that those soldiers should just walk away. Do you know what it takes to train one Nigerian soldier, even a recruit? And you are talking about a lieutenant colonel, you are talking about a major, and people sit back here and be talking about human rights. Whose right? Do the soldiers have animal rights? Are they not Nigerians? And they went there to help the country. So the president has to be firm on this and take on those communities and their leaders, so that anybody who is talking about it is an accomplice. First, you should first be accused before you even talk about trying him. So I feel very bad. I'm very touched. This is a raw nerve you have just touched this night, because that case of Major Daniel Obi is particularly touchy to us as a community. We don't have up to 3 military officers, because to even get recruitment is a problem. I don't know what we spent to put him in NDA.
All right. Honorable Cletus Urban, as the chieftain of the APC, thank you so much indeed for talking to us tonight. I appreciate it.